Hi everyone, just wanted to go over some information from week one and then a couple of the quiz questions and then our info for week two. Week one was just kind of starting to get the introduction to research, the research world, different types of research, important uh, committees and organizations like the Institutional Review Board or IRB, etc. So that was our reading and study for this past week. Obviously, you had a reflective essay, which hopefully went okay. You had the ed puzzle from last week, and for these first few weeks, you'll have an ed puzzle other than this one that is a human subjects protection education stuff. So you'll have those as well. And then the quiz. So that was last week. Let's take a look at this week to come, week two, where we're really going to start to think about um, research questions, research problems, hypotheses, what a literature review is and what elements there are in a literature review, those types of things. So that'll be the bulk of our study this week. There is a little lecture here about literature reviews that I had done previously, so that's in here. And then some information about gray literature, etc. So we have our other ed puzzle for this week. Our discussion this week is about significance in a study, and then we have a written assignment as well. Now, one thing that I would suggest for everybody, if you are taking this course in conjunction with your thesis project, you want to be thinking about, or you want to be doing these types of things, these assignments like this written assignment one, with regard to the topic that you're exploring for your thesis project. So you'll want to keep that in mind. If you are not taking this in conjunction with your thesis project class, which not everybody, you actually shouldn't be doing that, but I know that we have waived some prerequisites for some students to allow that. But so if you are not doing that, use these assignments, this discussion and these written assignments, etc., um, to um, to explore areas that you think you might want to study for your undergraduate thesis. So, for example, if you're specifically interested in, efficiency in the physician practice, those are the types of articles you want to be looking for, and you want to start digging into that. So, this is an opportunity for you to kind of do some pre-work for that class, but also learn about the process of developing a literature review and whatnot. So that's that. Let's hop over and take a look at some of the quiz questions. So the one thing about the quiz, it's a pool of questions, so not everyone gets the same group of questions. So I'm going over these answers, and because these are the most frequently missed, but remember that um, you may not have seen this question in this class. Sometimes only a couple of people will get a specific question. So just keep that in mind. So the first one, what type of research includes qualitative measures? So of our options here, laboratory, applied, experimental, those are not, think the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is about measurement and numbers, statistics, etc. Qualitative research is kind of trying to understand the lived experience of others. So it's about focus groups and interviews and narrative information in surveys, etc. So laboratory, applied, experimental, those really aren't qualitative in nature, but descriptive research would be considered qualitative because you're describing some sort of an experience, be it a case study type situation or a true review of um, looking at all of the I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So my dissertation study was qualitative in nature, and I interviewed fire chiefs and leaders in the fire service about wellness programs. So I was describing their experiences and their learning through my research that I did. So descriptive in nature, you're able to look at so much more than just statistics in a qualitative study. Principal investigator typically inactivates the study by providing a final status report to the IRB. Is that true or false? That is true. So at the end of any study, you will typically provide a status report back to, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. You'll provide a status report back to the IRB to let them know the outcome of your study, and also if you have funding, research funding, grants, and whatnot, you need to provide a final budget, and then that will kind of inactivate the study moving forward. So the study would be closed out at that point. Next one, which of the following is a pitfall of large sample size? So when you have a sample, when you choose a population to study and you have a large sample size, our correct answer is missing a pertinent finding in a subgroup. Sometimes you won't have you'll have subgroups within that large sample, and there will be findings of the study that are specific to that subgroup, but are very pertinent to your study. But with a big sample, you're not focusing on those subgroups. So that is your potential problem with a large sample size. What does the 95% confidence interval represent? So I've added a little graphic here to give you a picture, but the 95% confidence interval is the range of values that include the true population value. So when you think about a set of data, and this here is showing that a bell curve, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect bell curve like this one. But when you have a set of data, you're going to have the certain number of standard deviations out. So here's your mean. This is your middle. This line is going to be one standard deviation on either side, and this is going to be two standard deviations on either side. Now, we don't have to do the calculations or anything for this. That's not the purpose of this class, but understand that for a typical population, if you're trying to measure, how much of that data is really representative of the true population, it's going to be within this 95% here. It's not going to be the outliers on the left or the right. It's going to be this 95% here. So two standard deviations from the mean on either side is going to be considered the 95% confidence interval, and that data will be most representative of your population overall. So let's just say we're looking at height in women. So you will find women that are 2 feet tall, probably very small people. You will find women that are nearly 7 feet tall, but those are going to be outliers. So your average height is going to fall within this 95%, and your mean is probably around 5'6" or 5'7" or so, I would say, is probably going to be your average height in women. That doesn't discount the fact that there are very, very small women and very, very tall women. It just means that the typical population is going to fall somewhere within this 95%. So this might be like, 4'11" up to like 5'11" or something. So that's where the bulk of your people are going to fall. So that's the 95% confidence interval. Written informed consent form must be obtained for all human subjects involved in a research study regulated by the IRB, true or false? And that is false. Not every study requires a written informed consent form. Sometimes informed consent can be done orally. It can be done, and it all depends on the study. Some studies do require written informed consent, but some studies do not. If you have anonymous research being done, perhaps via an online survey mechanism, etc., there is no written informed consent form. So it all depends on the situation and how you're storing the data, if you're storing it in a de-identified fashion, etc. So no, not every study requires a written informed consent form. All parts of a peer-reviewed journal have been peer-reviewed, true or false? So what's important about peer-reviewed journals? Peer-reviewed journals are scholarly journals that we use in academia, but they're also used in the professional world. And so in order to publish in a peer-reviewed journal, you would write an article, typically. You would send it in to the editor, and the editor will assign, or sometimes you can suggest people to review, but the editor will seek out people, 2, sometimes 3 people to review your article. And it's done in an anonymous fashion. So it's a blinded article. They don't know who wrote it. They only know that it's this particular article about a study, etc. So that's what a peer-reviewed process is. Typically, I serve as a peer reviewer for several journals. I'll get an article, I'll review it. I'll say, yeah, that's a good article, but you need to fix this, 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 or I'll say, no, it's a horrible study. It's not sound research, or yeah, this looks really great. Go ahead and publish it. So and there's all sorts of things in between. Um, but there are items within a peer-reviewed journal that have not been peer-reviewed. So, for example, you have the option of responding to a prior article. Sometimes the editor will write an editorial about a particular topic. Sometimes there's just informational articles in a journal that haven't been gone through the double-blinded peer review process. So, no, not all parts of a peer-reviewed journal have been peer-reviewed, and that's why it's really important to look closely when we're looking to do research and looking to do, for example, your undergraduate thesis. You want to be looking for articles that are peer-reviewed from a peer-reviewed journal. Opinion pieces and editorials are not really what you want to be looking for. And that's that. So let's hop back to the classroom for a second. So as you're moving through this week, consider the in both the discussion and in your written assignment, be sure that you're considering your undergraduate thesis and think about that moving forward. What types of things do you think you want to study for that and for that thesis project, which may be going on now or maybe going on in the spring? But think about that and think about exploring those areas. It's not a requirement, but it will kind of give you a leg up when you get to that point for your thesis. You can go back and look at some of this work that you've done to kind of set up as pre-work for your thesis project. So that's all I've got. I look forward to seeing everyone in the classroom. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.